Good evening, everybody. Welcome in. This is The Spread. I am Cameron Tarrant. With me, as always, SoCon John Hooper, the one, the only SoCon John Hooper. How's it going, man? How's your week been, buddy?
Pretty good. Just doing my last minute prep for the Citadel Chattanooga football game.
My God. I have a feeling it's going to be a long afternoon for Bulldog faithful down in Charleston.
Man,
We'll
I
talk about
mean,
the game later, but
yeah, there's some interest. I mean, obviously we'll talk about the ETSU Wofford game not going to be
yeah.
happening this weekend because Wofford does not meet the requirements by the SoCon for availability for defensive linemen. So there's talk of maybe bring an offensive lineman over to the defensive line, that kind of thing. Sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. But
Yeah.
that'll be an interesting to look at as the spring goes forward.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have as many problems as we did in the fall. I felt like there were a lot of teams, getting postponed and games canceled. And you remember there, Clemson didn't play for like a month there because of some issues back in the fall. So who knows?
FBS, it's a little bit different. I know like Mississippi State had some numbers issues. I think they had like one game where they had like 46 available players or something. But it's a little bit easier to work around when you've got that many, athletes or whatever at that level than it is at the FCS level. So fortunately, I'm pretty sure Furman's pretty good on numbers. So, that's something maybe will be less of a concern. Hopefully will remain less of a concern because that will mean you won't be getting too many injuries or whatever during the spring.
Right. Yeah, we're gonna talk a lot of Southern Conference football coming up. Week 3 of the spring season here this week. John, 3 games. You mentioned one got canceled. We'll talk a little bit about that. I've got a bunch of games, around the country, FCS level, playing this week as well. Got some picks that we'll make. Got some good ones. Got some real good ones.
Hopefully these make us look a little bit better than.
Yeah, last week not good. Last week was not good. But we'll do that. We're going to dive into the Southern Conference men's basketball tournament this weekend. Actually, John, got the women's basketball tournament happening right now. And big news, number 1 seed Samford in the women's tournament goes down.
They're already headed back to Birmingham. So,
wow.
As we all expected, right? The 8th seed Tennessee State.
We'll see if we'll see if that is signs of things to come for the men's tournament this weekend.
Well, and Wofford won, I think, the second game. They beat UNC Greensboro, so it'll be East Tennessee State and Wofford in one of the semifinals. And Furman and Chattanooga getting ready to tip off here in like 10 minutes, I think.
There you go. Women's the SoCon women's tournament going on right now, but we'll talk the men's tournament getting started tomorrow night. We'll dive in and talk a little bit about the 2 first-round games and then kind of make predictions. I know we did a little bit last Sunday as far as predictions and everything, but we'll dive a little bit further into
this. Is one of those tournaments where like no prediction is actually wrong. Like if you pick Western Carolina to win it, they may do it. I mean, like it's going to be that kind of tournament. But I'm interested to see which of those lower seeded teams from Friday night is the surprise. I think there will be a surprise team, maybe.
I agree with you. There's always, in every tournament, it seems like there's always one surprise team. So a lot on the slate for tonight. Just a quick shout out to everybody. Thanks for watching here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We are live here every Thursday and Sunday. John, before we get to basketball and the FCS football stuff, some big news this week for Clemson football as they signed a 4-star quarterback out of Texas, Cade Klubnik, coming from Westlake High School out there in Austin, Texas, the number 4 quarterback in the 2022 class.
And Westlake High School, they don't really produce good players. So.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
This kid, I mean, it's going to be top notch, next level kind of stuff. Westlake High School always producing good talent, and look, what's crazy is, he'd gotten, obviously he'd gotten a bunch of offers from a bunch of D1 institutions. Dabo didn't offer him a scholarship until like last week.
Mhm.
And then boom, this week he decides he's coming to Clemson, which is amazing news the Tigers keep just rolling out quarterbacks. I mean, it's crazy. Quarterback you there at Clemson. So looking forward to Cabe Klubnik. He is the 2022 class. So one more year before we'll see him in orange and purple. But
what was the story on the corner that transferred out, Kendrick?
I never, maybe I could look. Let me see if I could find that on.
Because that was somewhat surprising to me. I mean, he was all ACC.
Yeah, and there was some speculation that is maybe due to some
disciplinary stuff
like that. He's had some problems in the past. I don't know. Let me see if I can. I haven't seen anything. Dabo was supposed to have made a statement, but
I never heard. Like after they said he was going to make a statement, I did never hear what exactly the statement was. So
yeah, so
I didn't know if you knew or
no. Like I said, I have not
because I knew like he was okay. So he was originally gonna enter the draft and then decided to return to Clemson.
Right. And he was going to be like a first or second round draft pick.
Mm-hmm. So that's why I was it's kind of like, well, is he going to go somewhere else or, put his name back in the draft? I didn't really know what he was going to do. So I know they had a linebacker earlier this spring. Was it transferred to LSU, but
yeah.
That wasn't he played some significant snaps, but this is Kendrick was probably the most significant play. He was the more significant guy on defense for Clemson.
Yeah, all right. Here is Dabo's statement. Quote, "There's not really much to say other than he's not with us anymore, but also to say I love DK. He's a young man that I've always loved as a football player. He's got a good heart. He's got a really good heart. He's never been a disrespectful young man or anything like that. Just sometimes there needs to be a change. So just thankful I had the opportunity to help him and hopefully make a difference for him these past 3 years, and thankful for all the contributions to the program." End quote. That was all.
Sounds kind of like a mutual parting of ways.
Yeah.
So wish him well, and
Dabo says the same thing later on. Hope wishing him well in any place he ends up after his time at Clemson. But yeah, big news there as Clemson landing that 4-star quarterback Cabe Klubnik out of Texas. If you look, they had a really good 2021 class. We all knew that. They've got 4 guys already signed for the 2022 class. That includes Klubnik out of Texas. Colin Sadler is an offensive lineman here from Greenville, South Carolina. He's a 4-star offensive lineman. Adam Randall out of Myrtle Beach, 4-star defensive.
Right.
Excuse me, he's a 4-star wide receiver.
Myrtle Beach High School, right? I think so.
Yes, Myrtle Beach High School.
Yeah.
And then Blake Miller, an offensive lineman out of Ohio. So a couple of
pretty good.
4-stars on their 2022 class as of right now.
Yeah, and we're talking about way early signees. So
yeah. I mean, they got a whole other year of high school football to play.
Yeah. So when you're getting 4 stars that early, that's usually a good sign of a great class to come. So
yeah, so big news for Clemson this week, John. Big news at the NFL level. Former Houston Texan defensive lineman J.J. Watt announced this week he's headed to Arizona.
Yeah, my phone started blowing up.
Yeah, that was
yesterday.
crazy.
Like with all this, like different sports mediums or whatever sending out the story. ESPN, SB Nation, everything, just about J.J. Watt.
He announced it on like Twitter, like while he was like bench or like squatting.
Yeah, I saw that.
Had like a Cardinals like shirt on. So I know DeAndre Hopkins, former teammate of his, will be.
Man, Arizona's getting sneaky good, aren't they?
They are getting good. They may be the best team in the West, NFC West next year.
I mean, they barely missed the playoffs this past year. They weren't, too far away from getting in the playoffs. And,
that's another team that needs some help at the offensive line position.
Yeah, because Murray was having to run around the whole season. Yeah, but
I mean, when you're throwing to DeAndre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald, although Larry did he announce he's retiring?
Yes, he did.
Okay, I thought I saw that.
But they still got like really, really good receivers.
Yeah. So Arizona, man,
I mean,
watch out.
They got a chance. They got a chance to be pretty good, especially now getting J.J. Watt.
2-year, $31 million deal with the Cardinals. 28 of that, John, is guaranteed money. So he's at least.
You get the feeling that some of these players were just like happy to get out of Houston, no matter where they go.
And look, Deshaun Watson may be the next one to leave. I don't know.
That's a bizarre situation. It's sort of like, weird. Do you remember when New Orleans had the thing with is it Antonio Davis that was trying to go to LA and like the Pelicans weren't wanting to let him go? Do you remember that? They're like, absolutely not.
At the NBA. Yeah.
And he was like, oh, well, I'm just going to sit out the rest of the year or something. Yeah. And so like it's similar, like the NFL is doing their contracts similar to how the NBA, they're holding those players to them, where it used to not be as like stringent, but like I feel like that's kind of what they're doing with Deshaun Watson. They're just saying,
and look, Deshaun has gone and met with the new head coach of the Texans and has said straight out, I am not going to play for you this year. Like, I'm not playing.
So like what we were talking about, if they really wanted to force the issue, Deshaun could just retire for a year and come back.
He could. Like, I mean, he could. He doesn't miss out on a bunch of money. But at the same time,
he's going to make it anyway.
But at the same time, I mean, the Texans, if he doesn't play, the Texans don't have to pay him if he's not living up to his end of the
contract. Where the perfect play. I got a sneaky feeling he wants to go to Carolina.
Carolina. Now look, I know there's a
and I got a sneaky feeling they want him too.
Well, I would think Carolina is going to make a bid for make a play at it for sure. But don't be surprised if he tries to he's a Georgia kid, John.
Atlanta.
Yeah, and Matt Ryan's getting up there now.
That would be awesome if he could. They could somehow get rid of Matt Ryan. Get him.
Trade him to the Texans.
I mean, like, I hate to be that way, but like after, growing up a Falcons fan and having watched them lose the Super Bowl like they did a few years ago, I think it's time for a change at quarterback. I'm just saying,
Yeah. So Atlanta needs a lot of pieces too. Carolina does too, but adding Deshaun Watson would be a major improvement. Now, however, for Carolina, if they're going to get him, I mean, who are you going to get rid of in order to get him? McCaffrey? Are you going to get rid of McCaffrey?
I mean, you have to, right? I mean, pretty much. I mean, Atlanta, who would you get rid of? I mean, you get Julio Jones or, see, I think Matt Ryan's like, he's past his prime, so you're probably not going to get.
You're not going to get much for him.
Right.
Another team that's really in play, I think, John, is Chicago. I think the Bears are really trying to get him, which is weird because they've got Trubisky.
They could have gotten him to begin with. Like if they hadn't drafted Trubisky or whatever.
Yes. How great
that was like a dark day in Chicago. There's a lot of people ETSU's SID, and he's a huge Bears fan. He was like, "Man, I can't believe we didn't draft him when we had a chance."
But how great would it be if he goes to Chicago and Mitch Trubisky is on the bench behind Deshaun Watson, who he was drafted before?
So I would be like, if this is, the GM, you'd be like, so you drafted the guy on the bench, to begin with, and now.
Yeah. Well, Trubisky sat half the year on the bench last year behind Nick Foles.
It's funny though, because Chicago's defense was so good, it masked pretty much. I mean, their offense was bad, but
and look, Nick Foles,
they were able to get away with it because their defense was so great.
And Nick didn't play. Nick Foles didn't play. He didn't play terribly.
No, he actually, at times looked better than Trubisky. But
that's true. Oh, and one other, one other thing that we haven't talked about as far as NFL that was big over the past week or so was Carson Wentz headed to Indianapolis. Former Eagles, former North Dakota State quarterback.
Yeah,
headed to Indianapolis.
Interesting that just happened suddenly. There was not really there was no talk about it, or there weren't really many rumors flying around about it. It just happened. It was like,
yeah,
all right, Philadelphia.
Well, I think Doug Peterson and the Eagles organization realized that Jalen Hurts was going to be their guy moving forward.
I mean, he's on the hot seat too, right?
Doug Peterson. Oh yeah. Which is crazy. 3 years ago, he won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, when Nick Foles. So,
but there
you go.
That's just how quickly things change in the NFL. But that was big news. J.J. Watt obviously stole the show this week as far as headlines in the NFL. Moving over to Arizona. Arizona gonna be a threat in the NFC next year. So that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. All right, John. So we have talked a little football here. Let's get into basketball. It is time. It is here. The 2021 Southern Conference Men's Basketball Tournament starts tomorrow night, John.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
You're headed up there. You're ready to go, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm ready. First game is it's going to be the 8-9 game. It should be. Is it Citadel in Western Carolina?
Yeah,
I believe.
And then Mercer Samford.
I'm kind of interested to see how many Samford dresses for that game, because they had only 7 players when they played. Furman and Greenville a couple weeks ago. And then, but the weird thing is they had 2 overtime games with Mercer this year, and, so they play them well, obviously. But I think the better game of the 2 is Western Carolina's Citadel.
Yeah, and let's take a look again, just one more time. We did it on Sunday. Here's the bracket again for the tournament. You mentioned there Citadel, Western Carolina, first round. Mercer Samford, those games tomorrow. The winner of the Citadel Western Carolina will take on the 1 seed UNC Greensboro.
Right.
Mercer and Samford, whoever wins there.
It has all the makings of like a 9-3 final. Just kidding.
We joked about on Sunday. Western Carolina has been the hottest team in the Southern Conference of the last week or so, which is really crazy. But you mentioned here, John, these first round games. Which of the 2 are you most intrigued about for tomorrow?
Because of who they'll play next, Western Carolina and the Citadel. I think if Western wins that game, they match up really well with UNC Greensboro.
Yeah.
And that game, not saying the Citadel couldn't knock off UNC Greensboro. It just seems that, if you're looking at talent on talent, I mean, Mason Faulkner versus Isaiah Miller is a great point guard matchup, and one that would certainly be an enticing matchup from, just on paper to watch.
Yeah.
And I think Faulkner's enough of a presence at point guard to keep Western in that game, if not, pull another upset.
And wasn't Faulkner the guy that like disappeared for like?
Yeah, I think there's different stories out there, but I think he had a concussion. I'm not sure if that happened in practice or when it happened, but like it forced him to miss like 3 or 4 games, and then he comes back for UNCG and has like 28 points, and was really a big reason they were able to get that victory. So
yeah,
like I don't know how much of an advantage being the number 1 seed is this year. Like, because I mean that's going to be a tough game, but then
I mean you got UNCG at least. They've got the player of the year with Miller. They've got the freshman of the year, or one of them with Langley.
Yeah.
Miller was also the defensive player of the year. I mean, they've got the dudes to win it. The problem is,
Yeah, I mean,
the problem is they've been so inconsistent this year at times that
right,
it almost worries you a little bit if you're.
Well, you look at their loss. They've lost to like the 9 seed. They've lost to like just some weird, strange losses in there. They lost to VMI, which VMI's beaten a lot of good teams in the SoCon this year. But like if you look at Western, hasn't beaten like Furman or Wofford, but they beat UNCG. Like
it's bizarre. Yeah, it's just weird.
But it's how matchups work. I mean.
Western's probably which is weird. They're probably one of those teams that just matches up better than anybody else.
Right. So if they win that game, that's why that game will hold my interest. But also I think Mercer should beat Samford. Makes for an intriguing game with Wofford because Wofford, that's normally a pretty good game when Mercer and Wofford play each other. So I'll have my eyes on that one. Should Mercer be able to get past Samford, which hasn't been easy for them to do during the regular season, I think that makes a very fascinating game in the quarterfinal round because you feel like Mercer hasn't yet reached maybe the potential everyone thought they had coming into the season yet. They certainly have good enough players, but will the tournament be the time that they prove, what a lot of people in the preseason thought they were, a threat, a dark horse to potentially go a long way, and towards potentially winning the SoCon tournament.
Yeah.
I think if they get past Samford and somehow find their way past Wofford, you could see that. But
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I definitely think Mercer wins the second, the second of the 2 first round games. Yeah, I don't know, man. The Citadel Western Carolina game, it really, as much as I kind of lean towards Western, I feel like that one's really a toss up.
It is. I mean, I think the Citadel, where they'll give Western trouble, is I just think Hayden Brown. There's no real matchup to kind of stop him because even though he's undersized, he's just so strong and really finds a way to get those rebounds that a lot of guys can't and get to loose balls. But not only that, he can step out and shoot, the outside shot as well. So certainly the Citadel's dangerous because I think not only different from the past, they can do more than hurt you at as an outside shooting team. They can, with Hayden Brown and I think an improved inside with Spence and some of the guys they've got in the paint. I think that they can score in the paint too, which they haven't been able to do in the past. Clark as well has been able to be kind of a rim protector in there for them.
Over under on this game, John. More than 50, over under 50 combined 3-point shot by both teams in the Citadel Western.
Over. Always take over when it's Citadel in Western Carolina because they'll take Like Mason Faulkner will be fading out of bounds, shooting threes, and it'll be a good shot for them.
The Citadel will at least shoot 40 themselves. It's
right. Yeah, I mean they'll lessen the margin for Western. They'll take their margin to like 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Western will Citadel will just get past midcourt and be like, all right.
It's amazing. All right, so that's the first round. Then we move into the second round. John, you mentioned that you liked. I believe you said ETSU would get past Chattanooga and face Greensboro in the semifinals, and then you liked Furman and Mercer to get to the other semifinal game. Tell me, give me one reason why Mercer upsets Wofford in the quarterfinals.
I think because of, I think Ross Cummings, but I also think Neftali Alvarez is a very good point guard that, probably doesn't get the credit he deserves in a conference that has a lot of good point guards. But I think he and Cummings can be, a nightmare, a headache for a team like Wofford if they shoot the ball well. And I think if they can find some kind of inside scoring from maybe either Gleason or perhaps Leon Ayers, I think that will be maybe the thing that puts them past Wofford in a tough one, because if they can get some consistent inside scoring, I think Mercer has already proven that they can shoot the ball well from the outside with Cummings and Alvarez and Jeff Gary and some of the pieces they already have. So I think that'll be one of the things to watch is, will Mercer's young big men match up and get the better of maybe Wofford's young big men and Sam Godwin and BJ Mack and some of those guys in there. So I look for that to be the case, and I think that's what propels Mercer to the upset over Wofford.
All right, and you've got obviously you got Furman beating VMI to get to the semifinals. What does Furman do different that they weren't able to do against the Keydets in the regular season?
Now that they get to play again,
because they got boat raced by VMI. Well, not it was close, but it sort of felt like VMI just sort of jumped all over them.
They shot it well from outside at home, and I think a long layoff for a team that shoots the ball as well as VMI does is not a good recipe for success, at least from what I've seen in college basketball this year. So I think Furman rarely lets a team shoot well from outside consecutive games. Like there's been games where they've lost games twice to somebody, but they never beat them the same way. Like Wofford didn't beat Furman the same way they beat them the first time.
Right.
So that's what I think. I think Furman is going to force VMI to maybe in Jake Stevens to try to beat him in the paint, and I think that's where Furman's strength is, and that's why I think they get past that game and into the semifinals.
All right, and then obviously you got ETSU over the number 1 seed Greensboro in the quarterfinals to get to, or in the semifinals to get to the finals. Yeah, and you like Furman over Mercer. We'll see, John. We'll be back on. We'll do the Sunday show, and we should know.
We'll see how that pans out.
Yeah, we'll see where you kind of end up on that prediction, if your prediction comes true. And then what I like, I think I mentioned it on Sunday. I like Furman Chattanooga matchup in the finals. So
that would be intriguing to me too, because I think it's going to be one of those Tennessee teams. I really do. I mean, whoever wins that ETSU Chattanooga game, this is the one year that I would be like, if I'm the number 1 seed,
I don't want to play.
I don't want to play either one of those teams. I mean, just because they match up. ETSU, for whatever reason, just matches up well with Greensboro. And you saw that Saturday that even though it went to overtime, I mean, it took a heroic effort from the player of the year, a 32-point game for them to win. So That'll be interesting. And then the other two, Chattanooga, those games were really close during the regular season. The Chattanooga UNCG games. So
it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be interesting. Should be some fireworks. Maybe we'll see some upsets.
So
we'll see, John. You're going to be live in Asheville.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you. We'll know a live update whether I'm a complete idiot or I'm a genius. More likely, I'll be a complete idiot, but I'm okay with that.
Well, we're going to move on to football now, where we were both complete idiots last week.
Yeah, at least I wasn't alone in that endeavor in football.
Yeah. John, man, it was not good last week. I think I went. We both went 6-5 last week. I went 1-3 in Southern Conference games.
Hey, we got a chance to redeem ourselves.
You at least went 500 in the conference.
Well, that's true. Yeah, yeah.
Thank God.
At the last second, I picked Mercer.
Yeah.
Just something about that game. I was like, you know what? I think Mercer's going to win this game.
Yeah.
But thank you, Mercer.
We're going to kind of go through the Southern Conference schedule this week. Supposed to be 4 games, John, but we've already had one canceled.
So we can't get that one wrong.
No, can't get the ETSU Wofford game. That'll be the second week in a row now that the Bucks have had off. They had a scheduled bye week last week, and now they get another bye week, essentially heading into Furman next week.
I think there's a conspiracy going on, but with Wofford to try to get the double off week for ETSU. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's the official thing is I think Wofford reported they didn't have the defensive linemen meet the criteria that the SoCon requires for a game, so that's why they had to postpone the East Tennessee State game. So,
well, hey, because that was going to be
which I don't really know. Well, I guess. You can't just take guys and move them. I mean, it's
I was just
kind
of looking forward to it because I thought it was going to be an intriguing matchup. You had ETSU.
Yeah, it is. I think it'd be a very good game. But.
Yeah, well, ETSU, coming off their bye week, they're 1-0. Wofford limping in after just getting smacked around by Chattanooga last week in the second half of that game. So I was interested to see how Wofford kind of rebounded after that. Against ETSU.
See how they Tennessee waltzed around it.
Yeah. So we'll see. Wofford gets another week. They'll get a week off. When is their bye week? Do they get a bye week?
Probably prior to Furman, I'm guessing. I don't know.
Everybody has a bye week prior to Furman, it seems like, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, because Chattanooga made VMI's bye week prior to Furman, so interestingly enough,
so
you got to keep your eye on those Tennessee schools.
ETSU is now the second team to have an unscheduled bye week the week before they play Furman.
Well,
I'm a fan. That's a little
you'll worry about that when I guess next week comes along.
Yeah,
but this week Furman plays Samford.
They do.
In an interesting battle, I think Chris Hatcher's team really looked very good last week in getting that win over Western Carolina. 630 yards of offense. Liam Welch goes 26 of 36 passing.
Yep.
And I sent you that stat earlier today where 31 times in Hatcher's career that they've scored 30 or more points.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
and 9 times they've scored over 50.
One of those being last week.
Yeah.
So Liam Welch a little bit more seasoned at quarterback. I thought, from what I saw of the game, he's a little bit more confident and assured of himself. I think he's a passer, which I think makes a difference in that offense. Even though Chris Oladokin, when he gets it going, is very good in his own right.
Yeah, and look, for Furman, the thing I'm interested to see is how do they rebound after a tough loss on the road at VMI against a team that they probably should have beaten. Nothing against VMI and a big win for VMI, but that's a team that Furman beat last year 60 to 21. So probably should have won the game. How did those guys rebound? They're back at home at Paladin Stadium, but they're going up against a very talented offensive team that just dropped 55 on Western. So what's the mindset for the Paladins coming into this game, John?
I think this team's pretty resilient. I don't think in a spring season like this, I don't think it'll affect them as much as it would like in a regular season, because a lot of those guys are still just really, really, happy to be playing and just have another opportunity to go out there and, be able to kind of shake off last week. I think will be more so than maybe in a regular season where it hangs around a little bit longer. So, and at this point, I mean, with Wofford losing last week, it's your one loss is probably you're not going to win the. No one's going undefeated. We're pretty much certain of that. I mean, as much as I hate to ruin VMI's dreams, I don't think they're going undefeated. So I think it's the championship still really up for grabs, but I also think it sent a message that you can't just go out there and put on the pads and expect to win. I mean, because everybody's looking at it as a great opportunity, and VMI took advantage of that opportunity last week. So.
They sure did. And John, we talked about that game on Sunday, and look, the offensive woes are a little bit concerning. The offensive line play definitely concerning for Furman. If they can move the ball, if they can run the ball, something they were not able to do against VMI, they've got to be able to run the ball. Hamp didn't play bad, but he had no time to throw the ball because he was.
I think everybody knew that was like that somebody was going to stack the box and just blitz and force you to beat them throwing it. But I just don't think that they thought VMI would be that team that was able to generate enough pressure and really give credit to their defensive line, be able to do what they did against the run to force Furman into that. And so I think probably if you'd asked me that, I would have thought, ETSU, some teams like that have had some of the better defenses in the league would have been able to do that more so than VMI. But total credit goes to VMI's coaching staff for being able to take advantage of what I think is, a pretty experienced defensive line when you look back at it up front. And I look back and they've got like two seniors up front, and Dabney, one of the guys that was wrecking havoc in there, was the nose tackle. So full credit goes to them. But, Furman's got some things to work on. But I think all of the things that Furman has to work on are fixable problems, which, I think it more like Furman didn't know what was coming at them than it did like they weren't talented enough to stop it. If that makes sense.
I think the keys here for Furman, the keys to the game for Furman is one, they got to run the ball,
right?
And then on the flip side, if you're Furman's defense, stop the passing game and force Samford to run the ball. Something that they're not. They had a good week. They ran the ball well last week against Western,
but a lot of those were quarterback runs.
And it's not something that they've done great in the past.
Consistently
is running the ball. So stop in the pass game and forcing Samford to beat you on the ground. And then for Samford, I think offensively, you've got to jump on that Furman defense early. I mean, you've got to put them, their backs against the wall early. And then on the flip side, defensively, you got to get pressure like VMI did.
Right. And if you look back to last year's game, Furman, something they did well was, I think, like Devin Wynn's first two carries were like 75 and 89 yards or something.
Yeah.
So obviously that they found something they were doing, blocking well. But, it's a game to where if Samford ever gets it in their favor to where they get it going offensively, you can always have that feeling as a Furman, you have to score with them, and that's always a tough feeling as well, you know. But I think Furman's defense is good enough to slow down that Samford offense in a similar way to that ETSU did once they figured it out, you know.
Yeah. So that was the game here in Greenville. Samford coming to town. Both teams 1-1 in the spring season. John, here's one. VMI coming off their big win against Furman at home. Head to Cullowhee, North Carolina, the home opener for the Catamounts.
Yeah, that one could. That one might be difficult. Because I think that this is a game that, quite honestly, I don't see it being too close.
Not after what I saw last week from VMI.
No. So I think you're going to get somewhere in the neighborhood of I think like a 31-17 type game.
So no big upset for the home opener for the Catamounts.
No.
Now we're gonna make our picks, so I don't want you to spoil it. But
yeah, I guess I shouldn't say that already. But
okay, we know who.
I hate to spoil it, but I hate to play spoiler. But
yeah, I agree with you there. Look, Western looked better last week, especially offensively. They did not play poorly. They played a lot better than they did against Furman. And last week against Samford, the problem is that Western defense. Like you would think that Coach Spear and those guys could figure out that side of the ball, and they just haven't been able to the past few years.
Right. I don't know, for whatever reason that hasn't been the case. I just, you know, and the weird thing about it last year was Western played really well against at VMI. You know, they went up there. I think that was the first team to intercept. Is that right? They were the first team that intercepted. Was the quarterback Reese Udinsky? Yeah, because he had like that really long streak of passes without an interception, and they were the first team to really intercept him. And you know, Donovan Spencer had a very good game for Western against them last year. So I'll be interested to see if Western can kind of have the same type game plan and maybe be successful in doing that again this year.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I expect Udinsky will probably get it going a little bit better than he did last week throwing the ball. Although he had over 200 yards and a couple scores for the Keydets against Furman. But I expect him to have a bigger day against that Catamounts defense.
Yeah, that's one of the things is like you can always kind of expect teams to get well against Western, which is kind of bad to say, but I mean, there's some truth in that. But I mean, you know, it's interesting because we thought the problem was Western's defense. Well, it was this past week, but the first week we thought it was their offense, and you know, their offense played okay against Samford. So, you know, who shows up? Do both sides of the ball show up this week?
Yeah.
Who knows?
They're going to need both sides of the ball to show up in a single game if they want any shot at winning a game this year. And then another game, John, that could get out of hand. Chattanooga headed down to Charleston, take on the Bulldogs. John, is the spring home opener for the Bulldogs. They did play that one home game to Eastern Kentucky in the fall.
Lost. And things they may not be getting any better for the Bulldogs come Saturday, based on the Chattanooga game that we saw. You know, this
last week. I did not expect. We talked about it Sunday. I did not expect that outcome in that Chattanooga Wofford game at all.
So we're at halftime, and North Dakota's up 7-3 still.
I like it. North Dakota, South Dakota playing right now.
Yeah. So, I think Chattanooga. One of the things you'll see this week is Island Ford will be supposed to be back in the lineup for them. the running back that was, of course, freshman of the year last year in the SoCon. And I thought really a real good game, for uh, their quarterback. Wasn't sure what to expect from him coming out of Drayton Arnold. His first, he started the Western Kentucky game back in the fall, but we really didn't know what to expect, and I think he had a great game against Wofford to start the spring season. And really their offensive line, if you look at, they had 5 starters back. Harrison Moon's one of the guys that comes to mind. They've got some good depth up front, and they're sneaky good on both lines. So they're in the mix for a SoCon title for sure. And I just think they're too much for the Citadel.
Yeah, they're definitely better than I gave them credit for last week. For the Citadel, they've had the offensive problems, which has been kind of strange. I mean, they run the ball, they're going to pound you. They had some success against Mercer in the second half of that game last week, but the problem was, John, was the defense was supposed to be really good, I thought. What happened with that Citadel defense?
Yeah, Willie Eubanks III is, he was the preseason defensive player of the year. They had a good number of players coming back on the defensive line. That was supposed to be the strength, so that was a little bit shocking. I don't know. What did Mercer end up throwing for last week? Because I remember thinking their secondary was pretty good during the fall. One of the strengths, but it seemed like Mercer was, even with a freshman quarterback, was doing some things that were a little bit surprising as far as in the passing game. I realized they did end up running the ball pretty well, but I was shocked by how easily it seemed like Mercer was able to do things from the outset of the game.
What's interesting, though, about that game is 42-28 Mercer. The Citadel outgained them 413 to 353. Or, excuse me, 354 on offense.
Wow. And that's where you have to say turnovers are the, must have been a
three turnovers for the Citadel.
Yeah, so
to 0 for Mercer didn't.
Right. So
that's.
And so credit goes to, that improved Mercer defense that we had talked about, like against the Wofford in the Wofford game, unless you look at, the stats and really do a deep dive into the stats, you really wouldn't know how close Mercer actually was in that game.
Yeah.
The score wouldn't indicate that, but Mercer played pretty well, all things considered.
All things considered, yeah. So that's the SoCon schedule for this week, John. Let's take a look, just kind of dive in real quickly through the standings through 2 weeks. You've got ETSU, VMI, and Chattanooga sitting on top at 1-0 right now in the standings. Furman, Samford, Wofford, and Mercer all right there tied for 4th at 1-1. The Citadel down at 8th with at 0-1, and then Western Carolina rounding out the bottom at 0-2. I'm just counting the obviously the conference, the spring season. I'm not
right
into the fall. Surprising what the standings looked like through 2 weeks.
Yeah, a little bit, but I think at some point, it's gonna even out. I think you look at, the Furman Chattanooga game coming up. That's going to be big at Furman. Obviously, you're going to have ETSU Furman, ETSU Chattanooga, which I think will be a big game. I really think it's between ETSU Furman, Wofford, Chattanooga right now, and VMI. I think VMI, is kind of the dark horse. Even Mercer. Mercer and VMI will be a fascinating game to me, as far as like who can maybe solidify themselves as the team that maybe is a challenger and maybe one that drops out of the race. So So I think as many as 6 teams could win it.
Well, including this weekend, John, we've got 6 weeks left, so a lot can happen. A lot can happen in 6 weeks. So that the SoCon standings at the moment,
and with one bid probably available, that's going to be huge, for the playoffs.
Yeah. All right, John, you ready? Let's make some picks, man. Like I said, we went 6-5, both of us last week. Got 10 games for us this week. Got some good ones on the schedule for this week. So let's see if we can do a little bit better in our FCS Pick'em section this week. All right, John, first game. We're going to start in the CAA.
Oh, boy.
2 teams that have yet to grace us on the football field this spring. Both teams getting set to get their spring seasons started. You got the Black Bears of Maine.
Ooh, it's going to be cold up there.
Headed to Delaware, take on the Blue Hens.
I don't know much about Delaware, but I think them being number 25 is a little bit of a reach. I'm going Maine on the road.
I looked at the stats, FCS top 25 today, and that's where they had them ranked. So you're going
I'm going with Maine.
You're going Maine in the upset. Now, Maine had a little bit better of a year than Delaware did last year. Both teams, are pretty good staples in that conference.
There's a tendency for the stats poll to overrank teams in the CAA. Overrate.
Yeah.
So especially Delaware. Yeah.
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to take Joe Flacco's alma mater. I'm going to go with the Blue Hens at home. Never mind. I'm not going to go there. I was going to say something else, but I'm not going to do that on air. I'll tell you. I'll tell you after the show.
Yeah, I think I know where you're headed with that.
Yeah. I'm going to take the Blue Hens. So you like Delaware? Or excuse me, you like Maine?
I like Maine.
So already off the bat, John, we're going to agree.
The good bowl of clam chowder too. So I'm going with Maine.
All right, we've seen these teams in action. Southern Illinois just got a big win last week, John. Coming off that,
you could say that they were Saluki, very Saluki pride. They walk like Egyptians.
They may have had the upset of the year, knocking off North Dakota State last week.
That game wasn't close.
To Youngstown, Ohio, to take on the Penguins.
Penguins having trouble scoring points at all this year, and they'll have trouble again this week at Southern Illinois.
They're getting outscored 46-7 in their 2 games this spring.
Gets no easier against the Salukis, who will run like greyhounds all over Youngstown State this week.
After what I saw Southern Illinois do to North Dakota State last week, and Youngstown State hasn't scored since they scored those 7 points against North Dakota State.
Ever since I said that a penguin with a scarf on it looks so intimidating, they haven't really done that well.
Ever since Jim Tressel was there, they just haven't been the same. Haven't been the same.
It's going to be Southern Illinois wins by 2 touchdowns probably.
Yeah, 2 by 2. Man, I think Southern Illinois. Let's go 4. I'm going to go by 4. I think Southern Illinois.
You think they go into the ice castle and just skate all over Youngstown, right?
Yeah. There's probably going to be no fans up there anyway. So.
Probably not.
So I'm going to take the Salukis this week over Youngstown State. All right, John, back to the CAA, where the new number 1 team in the FCS, the Dukes of James.
Would you say they earned it with their win over Robert Morris, though? Come on.
The narrow escape that was beating
Robert Morris. Tell me they're playing another school by name, like some.
Nope, they actually get a conference game this week, John. They take on the Phoenix of Elon.
Ooh, Elon's bad. You want to hear? They got absolutely train wrecked.
Yeah, John. Here's
Gardner Webb.
Here's your fun stat. Fun stat for Elon: defense is giving up an average of 396 yards and 32.5 points per game.
They're going to give up that at least on Saturday.
And James Madison has over 560 yards on the ground through their 2 games.
Maybe they just have to run it. Yeah, James Madison, just run the clock out. So this easy win for James Madison.
And maybe Gardner Webb will be better than expected, but normally nobody loses to Gardner.
Well, Gardner Webb does have a new coaching staff. Trey Lamb is.
I'm not saying anything bad about it, but if you're a CAA team, you're not supposed to lose to Big South.
Well, you almost lost to Davidson in your first game in your Elon. I mean,
that's
the Pioneer League team. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that game may have even gone to overtime. I'm not sure, but
awesome.
Yeah, Elon's struggling, safe to say.
Yeah, we're both going to take the Dukes then on the road against Elon.
Will be no rising from the ashes this time.
Yeah, absolutely. How about a little HBCU football, John? We picked what was it, Southern last week, and they played Alabama State or somebody like that. Anyway, we get some HBCU football here in this state, in South Carolina. The Bulldogs down in Orangeburg taking on Alabama A&M from the SWAC.
Wow. I'm gonna go. I like my home state. I like what Buddy Pugh has done down there. I'm gonna go with South Carolina State to get the win on that one.
Yeah.
South Carolina State, as mentioned below, was a very good, probably a football team that should have been in the playoffs last year and didn't get in. 8-3, and we're tied for second in the MEAC.
Yeah, they're very good, and look, Alabama A&M didn't have a terrible year over in the SWAC. But yeah, like you, I'm gonna take the Bulldogs. It's tough. Ask was it Wofford last year that went down there and got
and they got it handed to them down there at Dawson Bulldog Stadium.
Yeah, you just don't walk into Orangeburg, South Carolina, and come out with a win.
It's a tough place to play. Yeah, I mean.
And look, that fan base down there, they love them some South Carolina State.
Right.
And look, hopefully, I hope the band is out there because
I hope so too.
There's nothing better than an HBCU marching band. It's amazing.
You got to have everything. You got to have it all down there. So
yeah, hopefully
hopefully they're they'll have a the band and also some fans down there to watch.
Yeah. So we're both going to take South Carolina State in that one. All right, John, to the Southland Conference.
Ooh. So you're telling me Texas or Louisiana is where we're at?
Oh, this is a good one. The Incarnate Word is taking on Lamar.
2 teams that, knocked Furman out of it in 2018 because they didn't deserve to be in the playoff. I'm just kidding.
Lamar just got handled by Nichols last week. 55
Good Lord.
55-0.
But Incarnate Word, didn't they handle McNeese State?
They did 48-20.
Yeah. So I'm going Incarnate Word here.
I like Incarnate Word as well.
Nichols State might just be the best team in FCS football. Like they absolutely blast whoever they played this year, like the spring.
Let's
the combined score is like was it 87 plus 55, whatever that is, to 3?
Let's take a look. So they won 87-3 and 55-0. Now,
safe to say they're best in the country in scoring defense.
Now, granted, they played a D2 school.
Yeah, but
we in Lincoln, Missouri.
What is they've almost got 200-3 this year, this spring.
It's like 130 something to 3 through 2 games. 2 games.
See, we got from Incarnate Word to Lamar, and we got all the way off track onto Nichols State or Nichols.
Hey, you remember when they almost beat Georgia that year in Athens?
I remember when Furman played them at home, and they're from Thibodaux, Louisiana, and somebody played "Rock You Like a Hurricane," and that was the year Katrina had come through, and the Furman's PA guy was like, "We apologize for playing rock you like a hurricane.
Not a good.
And everybody was like,
Yeah, not a good look there. So both going to take Incarnate Word over Lamar. All right, John, I believe this is Big Sky. I know at least one of them is Northern Arizona at Eastern Washington.
Yeah, this you don't, and we called it last week. Did we say you don't just go into Walk Up Skydome and
that's right,
get a victory?
Well,
you don't steal our Lumberjacks head or whatever.
And they got a 1-point victory over, was it Southern Utah last week?
The
and then
Thunderbirds,
and then Eastern Washington, they had the unfortunate
going
into the Kibby Dome.
Weren't they like number 3 and they dropped to 22?
That's great.
That was the one where the guy was like, "That's no good," and it like hit the scoreboard.
It's gonna be a battle of quarterbacks. 2 really good quarterbacks for
who more of a. Is there more of a disappointment in week 1 than Eastern Washington?
North Dakota State.
Well, they didn't drop to.
No, but
they dropped 19 spots with a loss. Furman dropped 7, and North Dakota State dropped 6?
Something like that, yeah.
That's easily 19 spots.
Hey, maybe it was because they weren't on the red turf. If they had been at home, they probably wouldn't.
You don't just go into the Kibby Dome and expect it.
Exactly. Luckily for Eastern Washington, they are at home. So can they?
And they're not in a dome where they would be if they were at Northern Arizona.
So can they cut down the Lumberjacks in their home opener?
I'm going to shock you. Jacks do it back-to-back. 2-0.
I would be shocked, except I picked Northern Arizona, so we're gonna pick the Jacks to.
Yeah.
And after this loss, Eastern Washington will be out of the top 25.
Probably out of the playoffs as well.
Yeah. You go from 3rd place to not ranked at all after 2 games. It's going to be.
It'd be awful. Is it like they're not getting an at-large with 2 losses.
No.
Probably not. So they're probably going to lose, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so back to the Southland. John, we're going to take on, we're going to see McNeese, who you mentioned, Incarnate Word handed. They're going to take on Selah, the Lions from Southeast.
The Lions had a tough opener.
They did, but they didn't play poorly. Just couldn't find a way to get it done. Kelly, the quarterback for Selah, 462 yards, 4 touchdowns,
918 yards of total defense. You mean they've almost given up 1,000 yards in 2 games? My goodness.
Yeah. It's not been a good start to the season for McNeese.
I guess I'm going Southeast Louisiana.
Yeah. Picking the Lions, too.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. It's not been who was it there? Let me look up McNeese real quick because they do have a win in there.
They played Tarleton State. And remember Tarleton State.
State, and they won.
Tarleton State turned around and played an FBS team and beat them by 48-14 or something. It's like New Mexico State.
Hey, look, McNeese did win that 40-37 in overtime over Tarleton State.
And Tarleton State played New Mexico State, one of the worst FBS teams.
And New Mexico. Why is New Mexico State playing a bunch of FBS?
I have no idea. That's their only game of the spring.
No, they've got one this week.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah, let me pull it up here because
weird. I guess they figure they need all the games they can get.
The Aggies needed some practice apparently for next year. Yeah, they got Dixie State.
Ooh, it's probably another loss.
Yeah,
Dixie State's in Nebraska or somewhere.
They lost 43-17 to Tarleton State last week.
Who's just moving up from Division II?
Yeah, it's not. If I'm New Mexico State, I'm moving down.
Yeah, that's probably one of them. We're gonna play the spring to we're gonna take it on a see how we do. It's time to move down.
So we're both going to take Southeast Louisiana over McNeese. in this Southland battle. All right, John, it's time. We're going to pick the 3 SoCon games. We're going to start VMI at Western Carolina. We've already sort of, told who we think's going to end up
Speaking of teams that given up a lot of yards in 2 weeks, good Lord. I wonder what that is in total defense.
Yeah, it's
1,163
yards of total defense.
2 600-yard days is basically what you're telling me. Basically.
Well, they've given up over 600 yards just on the ground.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Jeez.
And then you had VMI last week, 9 sacks in that win over Furman. I think we know, John. We're both going VMI here.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long...
You can paint it red and gold.
Yeah, it's going to be a long, long spring for Western Carolina.
I remember the last time VMI got off to a 2-0. It was probably last year, but 2-0 start in SoCon.
No, because remember, they lost to Robert Morris like opening week last year.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Robert Morris is, they're very patriotic,
Yeah, exactly. Another SoCon team that it's going to be a long spring after what I saw, not just last week, but in the fall. The Citadel at home against Chattanooga. John, they've lost 7 straight games going back to November 2019.
Make it 8.
Yeah.
Chattanooga's coming in there, and they don't have any visions of letting this one get back past them. So I think Chattanooga gets the job done.
Yeah.
Move to 2-0. And then they say, who said we didn't want to play in the spring?
Yeah, right, exactly. Don't forget all about that after going 2-0 to start the year. And then finally, John, one more before we get out of here. Sanford at Furman. It's the big one here in Greenville. Can the Paladins rebound after last week's just debacle of a loss against VMI? Devin Wynn, leading rusher for the Paladins, 199 yards and touchdown. That Sanford offense, though, is daunting. 36 points per game, 470 yards total offense yards per game. So it's a daunting test for that Furman defense. Can they get it done?
Yes, I think they do. I think Furman wins this one 31-21, and I think they move to 2-1. Although I don't think it'll be easy.
I definitely won't be easy.
I think they come from behind in the third quarter and get it done.
I'm going to disagree on that point. I think Furman wins, but I think after last week, I would not be surprised if Furman jumped out on Sanford early and then held on to the lead as the game went on.
Okay.
Like
we both agree that.
We both agree Furman's going to win, but I would not be shocked at all if Furman gets up 10-0, 14-0, and Sanford's sort of having to kind of find themselves
right
early on. So
and then they start trying to play different quarterbacks and stuff like that. Yeah, I could see that happening.
So we'll see. Furman's got to get it going early, though. They do not want to down against Sanford. Who gets to score points at will. So, but like you, we're going to go with the Paladins getting the win at home. Well, John, that's good. That's it for our this schedule for this week. It should be a good weekend of football. Hopefully, a better weekend for our fit than last week. But
we got to do better than 6-5.
But how great is this, though, that we get football and the SoCon basketball tournament same weekend?
That's pretty awesome. I can't wait. It's gonna be a whirlwind of a weekend, especially if you're an SID at one of those schools. That's gonna be crazy. But it's all gonna be fun.
How do they split up SID duties?
I'm glad I'm not the one that has to coordinate all that.
Yeah, because somebody's gonna have to be in Asheville and somebody's gonna have to be somewhere else for these football.
Right.
But it's gonna be a lot of fun. Hopefully, Furman can get it done on both the court and the gridiron on Saturday. Hopefully it's not
on Sunday on the court.
Yeah, and then Sunday on the court, and then hopefully Monday on the court as well. Hoping for a big weekend for the Paladins. But looking forward to the tournament. Going to watch it very closely, and then this weekend's slate of games, not just in the SoCon, but some good ones outside around the FCS as well, John.
Yeah, always a good slate, and also some big national games for college basketball tonight too. Starting, I think, in Michigan and Michigan State. That's a good game tonight. So a lot to digest and a lot to talk about when we get back at it on Sunday.
Absolutely. Looking forward to Sunday, my friend. Again, everybody, thanks for watching here on Facebook, on Twitter, YouTube, wherever you guys were able to tune in. You can catch the replays of the shows up on social media, up on YouTube. We also record the audio of each episode, put that up on SoundCloud for everybody to enjoy in case you missed the episode here live with us. So, John, just a lot of good stuff. Looking forward to Sunday. For SoCon John Hooper, I'm Cameron Tarrant. This has been The Spread.